What is up, y'all? It's your boy Anarchy. Stream should be active. Let's see. How's my audio coming through? Oh, I can't hear a thing. Yo, all right. I cannot hear myself. Can you guys hear me? I don't have any audio coming through right now. All right, there we go. I can finally hear myself, so good. I was worried for a second that I didn't have any audio coming through. All right. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna pull up that chapter we left off with. As somebody else eloquently put it, the first ever successful talk no jutsu in My Hero Academia, which of course is the conclusion we wanted for at least one villain, because as much as people, I think it's interesting because obviously some people are just like, we want all the villains killed, kill them all, come on. I'm like, that's exactly the root of the problem in My Hero's universe, is this zero-sum game that so many people live by when it comes to these villains. So, of course, that's not going to be the solution that Horikoshi presents, because that is the problem. So, yeah. But that's all right. So, Tiger Blaster, I see Jax Tyler's here. Imkite Baby, of course. All right. So, Jalen Baxley, of course. All right. So, but yeah, like we said, standard, it's like this is what you expect. So if you don't expect the person whose biggest plot line is centered around love to need to be saved through communication and acceptance of love, I don't know what to tell you. What's that catchphrase in the streets that's been around for a while? Love wins, in whatever form it takes. So in this case, an actual embracing acceptance ends up being one of those crucial things to making sure that a villain can go down or find a different path. Now, let's see. Make sure I get this posted in the Discord. Well, actually, Discord's really slow, so we'll just keep rolling by. Oh, then we got 20 people, so I can just go ahead and hop on the chapter. All right, so the recap stuff that you guys are familiar with, I can just start. So we're back to the Toto fan. At least that's what it looks like. Oh, we're just getting a tutorial of, so we see all the slowly withering masses, twice turning into piles of goop. We see Enji's face damage as he's laid there on the ground, and twice is dissolving through the city. The ones that were about to murk Ida dissolving. The ones that were in the process of killing Hawks. So I kind of want to, man, I kind of wish we gotten to see more of this, but it looks like they had just gotten 2 Hawks and they were in the process of killing him. We see his face is cut up, his chest is cut up. Fair enough. Provagawara was a pretty decent guy. He killed Toga. So him just straight up accepting, like, which almost implies to me that he wasn't even willing to fight back against Toga, who was transforming. I don't even see a sword in his hands. That's all right. So what I gather from that then is that the guiding force, and hopefully Hawk's running the Hero Commission going forward, he's going to be fighting to change things to make sure that there's no more Buwaigoraras. I thought I wielded my knife to become those I love, but I wound up gripping it out of rage and hatred, all in order to make the world easier for me to live in. Here's the blowback from using other quirks while transformed. Ow. The heroes who got caught up in your changed zero gravity. You're giving them a gentle landing, huh? The release of your quirk is moving along that much slower since it was applied indirectly anyway, right, Ochaco? In the end, you'll never let anyone down hard. So cold. I've lost too much blood. My head and body don't even feel connected. I can't move a muscle, but I still got to keep moving. You can have a lifetime's worth of my blood. And we see her watching. She's looking at Sue. Am I cute? I want you to know how special I think your smile is. That much blood loss will be fatal because you kept moving around after I stabbed you. Listen, Ochaco. League of Villains will destroy everything. And once the dust settles, I know that that world will be easier for me to live in. And we see her drinking some of Ochaco's blood. But I was so happy to hear what you had to say. I know I said it's live or die, winner takes all. But the thought of a world without you, no, I don't like that. And to show how genuine these feelings are, all of my blood is now yours to have. Swarm. But she shouldn't doing this with me. When I almost died, Jin saved me this way. But since I'm out of Jin's blood, I gotta turn into you, Ochaco. Because if I can use someone else's quirk, my blood must turn into their blood too. No, don't. Were you planning to visit me in prison and make those blood donations until I die? You could have been fine and dandy just catching villains, Ochaco. Just eliminating the freaks from the world. Just doing the right thing like a plain old hero. And yet, you went above and beyond and spared a thought for someone who hurt lots of your friends and who was out to stab you full of holes. You're kind of weird, Ochaco. You're one to talk. You can't do this. I live and love as I please. So no, I can't let you catch you. Just like how you can't bear to let me get away. I'm sorry for stabbing you. I'm sorry for screaming at you. I mean it. Toya burned down my old house for me. That normal house full of bad vibes. He made it go away for my sake. That made me happy, but even with the house gone, the bad stuff's still there in my heart. You didn't make it go away, Ochaco, and as painful as it was, when you reached out and touched me, my heart felt so light. Maybe there's no way to avoid a battle, but I can't ignore what I saw deep inside him. Like it could just float away. Thank you, Ochaco. You've made me so happy. Truly, genuinely happy. I wanted to become other people so badly. So in fits of jealousy and affection, I drank all of their blood. Himiko, yes, maybe, just maybe if I'd known this feeling sooner, then despite how badly I wanted to drain their blood, I would have yearned to give my blood away too. If I'd experienced that sort of love, and maybe would have had an easier time living in this world. In any case, I am Himiko Toga. I live and love how I please. That's how I made my way in life. Just a normal girl with the cutest smile in the world. Oh man. We're gonna call it the dad in me here. As I make it a point to not cry. That's rough for me to read. Oh man, that's I mean, we said it would happen yesterday, or not yesterday, but last week. But even so, that's a doozy of a chapter. I saw someone say this was controversial, and if this somehow had people mad, I just want you to know I don't like you. This is one of the best chapters of My Hero, like ever. Yeah, and I feel confident saying that. This is one of the best My Hero Academia chapters ever put out. Like, what's touching this? Twice's death. Also, you know what? I'm also going to take this moment to say that this is why. Okay, as much as people like laud like the idea of like Bakugo dying or like it thought that was going to be great, this chapter almost moving me to tears and actually getting like them to form in my eyes versus what I experienced emotionally while reading those chapters. And you guys remember like the live reaction I even said like after I finished that felt weird. And like you guys, if you remember, if you watched both streams, or if you go back and you watch that stream, even if you go back, it's like reread because there was I was also streaming when Twice was killed. The reaction to Twice and Toga's death is genuinely different. Like you can see we have these different reactions in comparison to what I was like feeling and conveying when Bakugo's life was supposed to be on the end. And I wasn't streaming when Night Eye died, but different there too. So even if Bakugo had died there, it would have been the fourth best death in the manga. That does that sit well with you? Edshot's death isn't topping either of those three. Like the three deaths that I just mentioned, those aren't getting topped. If All Might dies, he can top those ones. But I thought this one was even better than Twice's death. Yeah, I put Toga's death over Twice's. Oh yeah, I stand by Hori writing the best villains in Jump. I don't really care what anybody has to say. Like in disagreement with that, like cool, that's your opinion, bro. Enjoy it. Um, the League of Villains as a faction is in like the best antagonist group, the best villain group we've gotten in a long time. Let me send the invite link out. But hands down, the best death we've gotten in My Hero. And I don't even like I'm not even gonna entertain somebody who wants to argue otherwise. Like unless it's one of the homies, it's like, oh, I really because I'm like, nah, bro. Because Twice's death is sad because he's dying and he's panicked and he's kind of dying of failure and he's sad about it all, but he still like manages to like he's like trying to get to Toga and protect them. And there's like this pyrrhic victory in that, like, but the way that this one is framed is that like we wanted Ochaco, at least I wanted Ochaco to be able to save her. Obviously, the domain expansion memes that came out last week and the ones regarding that were about the people who didn't want Ochaco to get around and save her, but saving Toga meant letting her die here. And I think that's just fucking sad. Cause like, you know, you wanted her to live. I like maybe you personally did not want her to live, but I wanted her to live. I wanted her to escape. I wanted her to still save and like leave, but nah. Yeah, and like I guess Twice's death is also like tragic because the clone stole everything from him, even his dying words. But in this one, it's like you see that even those that have hope on the villain's side don't have a future. And I guess it's also harder because Toga's ultimately a child. She's 17. She's still a child. Twice was a 30-year-old man. Twice was my age. Dudes my age get murked all the time. My hope is that, yeah, no, I used to have like bigger issues with Kotaro and Enji, but seeing this little girl die, I think now if I could spend my travel to an Animeverse ticket to slap one person coupon, it might actually be on the Toga's parents. Because it didn't have to be this way. Like it just didn't have to go down that way. They could have been loving and supportive parents. They could have taken care of their daughter. They could have supported her. They could have found ways to help her. Like somebody in this chat just said, they could have taken her fishing or hunting or something like that. And they just, all they did was freak out, scream at her, and make her feel inhuman. And that is disgusting. And I like that Toga acknowledges this even. She's basically saying, like, yeah, I know that you'll die here, and I'm sorry that it's my fault that you could die here. Um, and Ochaco taking the time to still try to save everybody, which on the Ochaco side, this is textbook heroism, like to the T. I talked about Deku getting an I am here moment where he's gently setting everybody down. Um, to showcase, with Black Whip so that as the stuff is like falling. And instead we got that with Ochaco. Accidentally spreading or learning to spread her zero G. And then going out of her way to not let every hero that got caught up in the zero G field fall and die. Look, Ochaco's always been ahead of Deku. You ain't got to flame my boy. But I do think it's cool that like Horikoshi gave, so far he's given all the students really high tier saving feats, because like arguably Shoto and Ida basically stopped the nuke, because if Dabi explodes, there's the heat damage, sure, there's the raw air wave, but all this other stuff, like it's gonna cause like some pretty disastrous results. Like I'm not gonna say it might cause seismic activity, but since they're in the mountains, there's a chance because it's going to be close to or around faults. But it, so it's a pretty high level of disaster that was averted. Ochaco got to stop the sad man's parade. Right now, and obviously Sue helped. The question here is going to be what are they going to do? Because obviously also something that I want to say that's a little petty, but based on the rules of shonen, what Ochaco did here is a bigger feat than what Shoto accomplished because it happened later in the arc. Yes, well, come here and cry with me.
He's still got it. He's still got it. Oh shit. Okay. Let's start off with like the big thing. Toga's dead. Like she's gone. Or at least she seems to be. Uh, I'm just not sure because like he has done this before for sure, but at the same time, Toga is a villain, but at the same time, she's also a kid, but that also adds to the tragedy. So I just don't know. Oh God.
So here's the interesting thing, right?
Yeah.
Is that Bakugo's death would be like the only thing you could draw on as like an established precedent for countering this. And I would say it was handled differently. And part of the reason why I didn't buy it, and I had some questions about it, was that like,
well, he's the most popular character in the series for one.
even like not looking at like, well, this character's super popular. It was half that chapter or a good chunk of that chapter was about explosion and how explosion was leveling up. When people die in My Hero, like especially if they're going to have an on-screen death, they usually get some pretty important final words in some way. They get to communicate to someone. The exception is obviously like the exception, but also the rule in this being twice, because he did get to communicate to Toga and them, but he was also dead. Like,
yeah.
But like, think about it. Night Eye actually got to have his conversation with All Might, got to talk about the future, encourage Mirio, and then he quietly went into the night.
Yeah, here's the thing. The only real lifeline Toga has right now is Hawks, because people say, oh, well, her and Hawks have the same blood. And I've tried checking Toga's blood, and it's unknown because the villains aren't registered at the quirk registry. So I don't think that's the case. And like, feasibly, I just do not see one of the older heroes, especially Hawks, who, remember, he was the only one who did what was necessary during the war.
Yeah.
He murked twice.
I mean, Endeavor was trying to. We got to give him credit. He was trying to.
He was trying to murk Shigaraki, but like the scale and power was just like entirely different. And he had such an impressive showing that the heroes decided, okay, we're gonna send our strongest after Shigaraki, but you're still our second strongest, so you're gonna go after All for One. So, but anyways. Oh man, I was thinking about it 50-50. The more I think about it, I think the chances of her living are dwindling, because look, people have this assumption with My Hero that they think it's a much different series than it actually is. They think that like it's a type of, oh, Pain is going to resurrect everybody at the end of the arc kind of thing. Mm-hmm. No, there's never really been an established precedent for that. I know you might want to argue, well, what about Edgeshot? That wasn't established. Well, his quirk, to be fair, was always shown entering bodies and like being very precise and needle-like. So like, if I just wish it was better set up more, but like the concept of his ultimate technique is not a bad thing in and of itself. It's just how it was introduced for me.
The thing with Edgeshot is that, one, you had people actually saying, I think this will happen, and people kind of joked on them and told them they were just coping. But Edgeshot's technique has always been entering bodies, and it takes a lot of skill to pierce people's lungs and organs and cause them organ damage that is not fatal.
Yeah. I think the only thing lacking really with Ed Shot is like a kind of emotional connection. It's like
That's the real issue. It was the lack of
yeah,
emotionality.
yeah. It's like and he did this like by throwing in a flashback with Best Genius last second, and it's like we had no idea they were buddies. Like we had zero clue. So and it's like again, I think you've said this before, but it leans into the fact that sometimes Horikoshi does things with the assumption that we're on the same page as him, and he kind of forgets to catch us up. And I think that's probably even more so than like death and stakes. I think that's probably my biggest issue with him as a writer, is like sometimes he leaps before he looks, and that kind of bites him sometimes.
He forgets. And like people will be like, oh, Horikoshi doesn't forget plot lines.
No,
What
no,
he forgets is that we don't have access to all of his notes sometimes.
Yeah.
And that we don't always have. And so, which is like, all jokes aside, if Horikoshi actually ever admitted, yeah, sometimes I watch YouTube content about people who read my series, and like he took that as an interpretation of his fan, like what his fans' knowledge base is, that would actually make so much more sense. Because then it would look like he was like, oh yeah, like these guys on YouTube said this and they like predicted this and da-da-da. So like everybody's on the same page. Like there are fans out there that are getting it and they're gonna like find those fans, and I don't even have to explain anything. Because like I like that usually when something happens with my hero, even when Horikoshi leaps before he looks, once the gut reactionary takes are done, like popping off, usually you can kind of have a discussion that says like, could it have been set up better? Yes, but X, Y, and Z also points to it. Like we just did with Headshot. Could have been set up better, but the physical side of it, like the manipulation of bodies and organs, etc., that's already there. The other thing that I will say, though, is also that Headshot clearly did not care about possibly giving people like staph infections and shit, because otherwise he would have always had some of Wash's bubbles on hand. Just saying. Like he was like, hey, yeah. I'm going to stop you and you're going to go get medical attention or you're going to die of infection.
Yeah. Okay, so man, this chapter. It's like, okay, here's the thing with like Toga and Ochaco, like it's never been pure enmity between them, I think. Like I don't think most of the villains are. I think the only pure enmity on either side in this series is Deku versus Overhaul and All Might versus AFO, and I guess kind of Deku versus AFO too.
Yeah.
Like, and you'll notice those are like for those respective climaxes of those like halves of the story, they're kind of in a lot of ways they're kind of the same character when you really look at them. They're completely heartless, manipulative, sociopathic bastards.
Those people don't have a reason for us to even want the main characters or the characters involved to like connect with them.
Zero redeeming qualities for either of them. So they kind of serve the same function when you really look at it. Because part 2 of MHA, I'm gonna let you guys all in on a little secret. And part 2 of MHA is literally the first half of MHA. Just they spin everything to be a little different. So anyway,
oh, real quick, let me hit the super chat. Hori killed Toga a day before my birthday. Also, it's interesting to see the same people mad at Hori for not killing people also not want people to die. People have this interesting obsession with specifically the good guys have to die.
Yeah, people only want Bakugo to die. People only really wanted Bakugo to die for 2 reasons. One, because yes, he was a bully, and I like that is hard for people to kind of let go. And 2, it's because people find Bakugo fans annoying. That was the main reason. Yep. Don't tell me different. Like people wanted Bakugo to die so they could lord it over his fans and make a bunch of memes online. It's the same thing you see when all of these other fandoms kind of compete with one another and try to make some stupid jokes like, oh, your MC is doing yada yada yada, and your Sadcast is doing yada. It just starts scaling like these weird qualifications and not really looking at the story individually. And I think it is kind of a similar principle does apply to when people see death scenes in the series. And here's another thing. A lot of people have expressed confusion. It's like, what? Ochaco was dying from that stab wound? It's like, well, okay, maybe it's like somewhat inconsistent because like there are like people survive injuries that they absolutely should not, but at the same time, it's a manga. It's like I don't think you're supposed to pay attention to it super closely. And you can always say that, like, okay, well, some people are built sturdier than others. And for Ochaco, I think even if it was another character, like if they were in the same type of plot line, they still would have been suffering from the same injury because it wasn't just the stab wound itself. It was her running, it was her floating around and still using her quirk after it. She's still using her quirk as Toga is talking to her. Like people don't understand quirks are physical parts of your body. Like they place a strain. So for her to do one of the biggest feats in this series, which was lift a mountain, the weight of a mountain, and to still be doing it to make sure nobody got hurt afterwards. Yes, she should be bleeding out and dying. Like just logically. So, and that leads into the blood transfusion. I think it's more than anything, it's just a central motif. Like Horikoshi puts a lot of thought into what the main motif between each character is. And ultimately, like, and here's the thing. People are saying Hawks can come in and save Toga, but
I don't see that.
the problem is that if Toga and Ochaco were the same blood type, she would not need to have transformed.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think that's something people are missing. She would not have been able to she wouldn't have had to transform if they were the same blood type. She could have just given her blood straight up. So her blood type is not B. Oh, is that your little baby?
Oh yeah, she just made a little noise.
Don't worry. Yeah. So anyway, this is like, oh man, I was 50-50 looking at the leaks and just getting it secondhand, but like actually reading the chapter full on, oh, possibilities for her to come back. It's looking very slim. Yeah, it's very slim.
I will address this. Mark Elmiel came through and said, I'm wondering if the news helicopter that is looking down on Toga and Ochaco will be spurred to act and reduce them via, or so I'm guessing rescue them via an emergency airlift. So
I don't know. Like,
I don't.
Good morning.
Hey Seth, if society didn't have the problems that it currently has in My Hero's world, I could see that happening. But because of the fact that at the end of the day, as far as the people in the helicopter are concerned, as far as the people watching are concerned, Toga, die. They don't want her saved. And that's part of why Toga told her, like in this moment, it makes it a point to crack and tell her, like, you're weird. Also, small detail I really like about this chapter is the Toga's hair. The one bun being undone, kind of showing that, like, she was basically saying, like, I can't live how I want to live, but she's like free at the very least from the other. So it's like part of her is free now, but she knows that because like with that freedom comes all that responsibility. So it's like she can't ever just do completely what she wants. And
I saw somebody say like, oh well, this death was unearned because it was making Toga die as a hero last second. And I was like, what? she most definitely did not die as a hero. She was still very selfish right until the very end. Like, I think people like this is the problem people have with the concept of saving as a thing in the series. They think it's just something strictly that heroes can do. That like it's a very heroic thing. And there's some heroism in what Toga did for sure, but at the same time, it was largely motivated by what she was feeling. Like she only really cared about Ochaco at the end. And she knew that she was not going to cope in whatever came after. So she
Mhm.
decided, okay, I'm just going to I'm just going to stop right here. I'm going to save the one person who actually gave a shit about me. And then I'm going to then I'm going to peace out. It's literally the meme killing myself in front of you to irrevocably change the course of your life.
That no, like that actually describes it perfectly because she and the other thing is that I think she also understood that just to give her a little bit of extra bonus points, even though she's still not a hero. I don't know how anybody could, because she was like, "No, after this, I'm going to prison." She's like, "What are you going to come to prison and like donate blood to me all the time just so I can like have something?" Like, she's like, "It's not worth." Like the impact of this moment is one thing, but to permanently alter Ochako's life in a way that like could be seen as inconvenient, which is something that she's just not willing to do. Which I actually like. I respect her being like, no, I'm not gonna control your life and like tie you to constantly having to come back to see me in order for me to
Uh,
function, which
yeah.
is wow.
I mean, it's kind of sad, like Compress and Spinner might be the only league members to survive. So, and like I didn't, I honestly I didn't think Token was gonna die, but it's like I think this just reaffirms that like the endings for Dabi and Shigaraki because Dabi's still kind of alive, but I think he's gonna be the last to die of the League of Villains on the chopping block. Honestly, I think he gets a final moment in the hospital. I
Yeah,
think Shigaraki, like because Dobby's kind of always had the final say in a lot of ways. He's dramatic like that.
yeah.
So I think there's a good chance Shigaraki actually dies before him in like the climax of Deku versus Shigaraki. So yeah, man,
Dobby technically should have been dead over 10 years ago.
yep. He's he's stayed alive out of sheer pure hatred and some of All for One's experiments. So
Um,
uh I think I think this I think this provides a preview for Shigaraki going out as well because like
yep,
we started this arc with Deku no Chaco on that hill saying it's like, look, we don't know what's gonna happen, but we're gonna do our best. We're gonna try and reach out to them. And Ochako's basically done what Deku's about to do with Shigaraki, but still, Toga still died on her own terms. And it's like, as she said, it's like, look, I appreciate what you did, but there's only so much you can do. Like you can't erase all the burden from my heart. Like,
like
and
she
so
knows she's still. So she's and that's kind of she's like, this is probably going to be the happiest I'll ever get to be in my life, even if I live past this moment.
yeah.
Because she's not getting out of prison ever. She killed too many people. And she worked with the League of Villains.
So
Like what is her life after this one moment? Prison forever.
yep. And she's like, uh, here's another thing. A lot of people have taken people who don't read the series have looked at the leaks and just because there was like some undertones of it in the previous leaks they saw that said like, oh, to go from queer baiting to bury your gays. Um,
Oh, I did see something that said that, and I was like,
yeah.
what?
Uh
There was a
and
lot of
like
unsavory discourse.
yeah, here's the crazy thing though. It's like every time with those tweets, as if to reassure people they're not, oh, I'm not keeping up with the lame hero manga. Don't worry. Oh no, I don't read My Hero Academia. I don't know what's going on.
Mhm.
And it's like, well, if you don't know what's going on, then why are you talking about it? Although I guess that can be said for like anything though. Like I said this, people want to be part of the conversation even if they do not particularly care for what the conversation is about. Like they just want to be
Yeah.
they just want to say their piece even when it's not necessarily appreciated. And I think if it was only the queer villains getting taken out, I would consider this barrier gaze. But there's also twice Dabi's very clearly on his way out, and Shigaraki is definitely going to die. AFO is AFO is a no-brainer. So I think it's just more about showing the villains as sympathetic people rather than it is like, oh, Horikoshi is eliminating the queer individuals. No, I think it's more. I think what prevents it is that it is like this. It's meant to be more of them being villains than their status as queer individuals, and we do have Tyler on the hero's side. Nejire and her friend, I
Yu
say,
or whatever her name is, whose
and her
favorite thing is
friend in,
Nejire.
yeah, and her friend in air quotes, and she like, I believe there's, I believe that the flower associated with Nejire is Lily,
Yep.
and in
Her-
Yuri, I mean, and in Japan, Lily means translates as Yuri, so that's all but confirmed. I think, man, uh, this is kind of therapy for me because I think I need to accept what just happened and move on.
Well, the thing is that it's like Toga's completely like somebody asked like what's the agenda if Toga survives this, and I just don't expect her to. And because like I said, the only thing I can see for her is prison. So unless in Hawks dying to save Toga on the like ignoring the fact that we don't know blood types or whatever, but ignoring that, it doesn't really seem feasible because you look at the state he's in. And the last time we saw Hawks, he was standing with a katana in hand over Tokuyama's body. We see him here getting slashed up.
We saw him this chapter too.
Holding nothing.
Yeah, and like I love what he says to Toga as well as her clone dissolved, and she's like, okay, fair enough. Like when she slashes him, it's like, okay, fair enough. I earned that.
Yeah, he's like, no, he was a good guy. Like, I'm not gonna pretend like it was okay.
So I honestly I kind of wished Hawks got taken out. I think he kind of served his purpose, but I don't know. Living after the war has potential too.
I'm rooting
Originally,
for
I
the
think
next
his
head of
role
the
is-
Hero Safety Commission.
I think Endeavor. I know people wanted him to die, but honestly, I think him having to live with the knowledge of what he did to his family and his son, even if he is accepted back at the table at the end of the series, I think that's a worse fate for him than dying. And I think that's a very fitting punishment for that character. It's like having to live with what you did. So I think this might be our first clear cut casualty of a major character.
Yeah,
I mean, excluding like, you mean in this current arc, or
that's why he said clear cut. Like, yeah,
in this current arc.
Yeah, no, I don't think Horikoshi would write what he did for Toga. Like, it's not the same as Bakugo, because when Bakugo went out, it was very clearly a life cut short kind of thing. Like, that wasn't fulfilling his character arc. That could have been a tragedy, sure, but like, that wasn't a character arc fulfillment moment. That was like a full circle moment. But with Toga, it's very very much like, no, this is it for me kind of thing. Like she's accepted what she's doing. So I don't know. I don't see this being walked back the same way. I would be
Honestly,
pretty disappointed if it was.
honestly, Bakugo's character arc was completed when he apologized to Deku. I'm gonna be honest. I think him after that is just to cement his place as like as being a full on ally of Deku's finally, like finally being his friend again.
Well, sure, but I think like his in terms of like roles that these characters play, like the reason the villains are treated more harshly than the heroes is because they're villains. Like in terms of just overall sense of justice, like these people are doing things that are wrong that involve the harm of innocent people. Like
Yeah,
they're not going to be treated the same way as
yeah,
a someone as like
honestly,
Bakugo. Like, why does Bakugo get to live
honestly,
and not Toga? Well, he's a kid.
well, Toga's a kid as well. To be fair,
Right, but Toga's well, actually, she's you know what? Never mind. I forget the source for the information now. Like I was almost certain
she's
she's an
17
adult.
right now, so she's still a
Yeah,
kid.
17 or 18. I don't think we know her birthday.
I think we know it.
Do we? I don't think so.
Let's find out. We always turn to the internet. Let's see, is it covered? August
But
7th in
like,
Kotoga. Oh, wait,
oh,
nope,
there you
nope, nope, nope. That's a shipping wiki.
go.
Hold on. My
Oh,
Hero
he
Acad
he
My Hero
clicked on it.
Academia wiki says age 17. So she was
Okay,
16 in her first appearance and 17 because her birthday is August 7th. She
so she
stated to
was like,
be. So yeah, that means that when she showed up during provisional license exam, she would have just turned 17. So that and like
Sure.
16 when they showed up and rated uh the training camps.
she was
Ah,
just shy. She was like 3 months shy of being 18. So
gotcha. Anyways, no, what I mean is that like Toga is obviously a villain. Like she's killed people and such. Like she doesn't like the reason why she's in the position of she is not that she not that her upbringing is by any means anything short of sympathetic. Like that's a horrible thing to have been raised. Like she's not equivalent to anything Bakugo did. Like Bakugo is a bully and those are awful people, but he did in fact have his character arc to where he's obviously changing and growing up. So it's the character arcs and their role in the story is very different. And I'd say the same about Hawks, because Hawks is very clearly the bright future guy. He's going to be working with other heroes on behalf of the villains, like Twice and like Toga. Like I don't think his role is best served just dying for Toga. Like that doesn't help society at all. He's one of the few heroes that actually went and saw for himself who these people really are and what could be done to maybe help them. He was just on the but because they were villains and heroes, they couldn't, get past those labels in their fight. So no, I don't think Hawks is best served by dying here. Like that doesn't really do anything for the story. And it certainly doesn't do anything for Toga either. I mean, in terms of narratively, like she hates that guy. I don't know why she wouldn't accept that. I don't think, as opposed to this, where she's going out the way she wants.
prepare for all the fanfics to correct and construct an alternate timeline.
I mean, sure, no, go for it. Like, no, because the thing with writing is that you can just write on a new theme, kind of. So, like, no, I get it. Like, there are people who will say this works, and it's like, yes, it does. Like any number of things work. If you're a writer, you can stitch themes together and continue on a story. Like that's just writing for you. I just mean like in terms of like the intent of the story, I think that this kind of her going out like this, for one, it respects her character. Like um like the one thing Horikoshi is consistent with is that characters are who they say they are. They're they're earnest. Their feelings are what's it, not real because they're fictional, but I guess what I'm saying is that like they don't betray themselves. And that's sort of just what I like about Toga. Like not that it's a good thing. It's not that you should emulate what she's doing, but that's not the it's not the point. Like, you're not, this isn't heroism in the sense that you should be like this. It's just heroism in the sense that, you know what, even I, someone who is extremely selfish or whatever, I can still find a way, or could have found a way, to love people, and in return, or like there could have been a reciprocal thing going on, and that's both tragic and beautiful.
And what you said, Seth, lines up with the thing that I've said for a very long time, which is that whether you like it or not, Horikoshi keeps his characters in character. So
Yeah,
you might not like seeing Toga die here, but based off who she is and the situation that she's been placed in, this is better for her in her eyes
yeah,
than being stuck in prison, getting to see Ochaco maybe like once a week or once a month, and just generally not getting to enjoy her life at all. Like, but
yes,
she also doesn't want, and she real like at this point, the only thing that's like the hero side about Toga, I guess you could say, is that I think we can also look at this as an affirmation that she doesn't necessarily want AFO to win anymore.
maybe. No,
Because like somebody else said in the chat, like otherwise he would just kill Ochaco anyway. But like the idea that, so I think she's kind of realized that the world is just going to be broken in certain ways and it needs to change, but the change that she was looking for isn't necessarily the one that has to happen.
well, what's interesting about this is that she doesn't change her mind regarding how the league's goal would make her life easier. Like, she is still seemingly on board with their plan. The difference is that, like, Ochaco gave her something else, something that is very precious that she didn't want to live without. So like that's, and that goes back to what you said, like the characters are who they are. So to me, it's like, yeah, Toga was still down with the whole destruction and death and all of that, but like there was more to it, and she got to be shown that, yeah, this world could have been an easier place for me if I had known this kind of love,
I think she's
which, you
just
know,
acknowledging
adds to
this
the
benefit.
tragedy.
You know, like this does make it easier. It's kind of like if you say stealing $1 million would make my life easier, you're not necessarily saying, yeah, I'm still down to go steal $1 million. It's just you're admitting, yeah, it would be easier for me if that happened. Or
Yeah,
something like that.
like
I
man.
don't think she gave up on the league or anything on their goals just because of this.
No,
I
no,
just
no.
think that,
Like people have this view of the series that like, oh, the villains have to be heartless, and it's like because they don't want to process the nuance of it. They just want to engage with it as like on the simplest terms possible.
it's
And
gray.
yeah, I want to say that this much. It kind of explains why they hype up certain other series. Um, but anyways, in MHA, everything is very, very gray. So
Black and
it's
white
not
is easier to process.
like that was the problem with the whole heroes and villains thing, because it's like, look, when you view everything as binary, you all of a sudden are going to leave a lot of people kind of really conflicted and not being able to afford any flexibility, right?
Yeah,
Like,
no, and it frustrates me when people are like, they hate the self-sacrifice theme, like especially in regards to Deku, but when it appears elsewhere, but then they turn around and like, and especially now with Toga, people are very mad that Toga's doing it, even though it's a very interesting callback to the Stain arc and other arcs in the series. It's just, oh, it's so good. But no, like, and then they turn around and say Hawks should die, and I'm like, for Toga, and I'm like, okay, not serious. this is this is not serious.
Well, a lot of people are just they, and this is something that I don't like that has been happening online a lot, which is that, like, for example, Captain Kobe just finally did his first Detroit Smash in One Piece. And I had a brief conversation with somebody that was like, everything about Kobe is just better developed than what has happened with Deku. And I'm like, that's just objectively not true. Like, there's just not enough like
Kobe?
writing. Right. I'm like, there's just not enough writing for Kobe to even like justify that as a literary analysis.
Wait,
How
the
many-
guy
wait,
who like
Has
disappeared
he appeared
and
in
then
more
came
than
back and then like that
he's
guy?
in the last 2 chapters. Yeah, Kobe, Captain Kobe.
has he
Uh,
appeared in more than like 20 chapters all series long?
I don't
yeah,
think
it's
so.
really easy to write a character when they're not on screen.
Oh,
I don't
dude,
think so.
dude.
So
Here's
eh,
Just
those
they have
side
their
tan-
development off the side.
little side tangent. This is what drives me nuts about One Piece fans. They will be told point blank that shit happened off screen, and they will take it with a smile and say, "This is excellent writing." You didn't fucking see it. How do you know? How do you
Eh.
know? You're just told something happened. You take it with a smile. You're like, "Oh, cool, Oda goat," and then
and like
Standards are low.
the thing with that, I'm like, bro, like a lot of people try to frame everything as like this is just a writing thing, and that's why I like it better, instead of just admitting some shit you just like more. Like, and like my hottest, like, but like it shouldn't be considered a hot take, but I have all three of the big three as perfect 7 out of 10s. And some people are like, wait, you don't have One Piece as like an 8 or not? Nope. You don't have Naruto? Nope. I have none of them over each other, because to me they have like this weird, like if you took it and then you created like a circle chart and then you just put like different stats around the circle, they would all overlay to create a perfect circle, but they don't, like they're each missing something that the other has just like way better for their
Yeah.
genre and for what they're in, and that's okay.
Yeah, no, I
Um,
like some of them more than others. Like I can pick a favorite among them, but like in terms of writing, there is like some issues that I have, and it's really mostly comes down to the fact that they're long running series that just keep running instead of like getting to the point in certain respects.
mhm.
And
like season one of
Naruto
the
is
Netflix show.
painful for me.
Yeah, season one of the Netflix show. They've said this is Oda said this. I think in something in this issue of Jump, he said there's like, yeah, there's something that have been cut from the anime, and I'm like, well, as far as that goes, we'll see how good the show is. But as far as cutting stuff goes, that's actually a good thing, because there's a lot in One Piece you don't really need to see. I'm gonna be entirely honest. Like I get that that's part of the experience, but I think what drives me crazy, East Blue and Baroque Works, and also Water 7, I think aren't really that bad with this, but I think every other saga in the series does kind of suffer. Okay, Summit Wars as well, and Sabaody. I think most of the other sagas in the series suffer from spending too long on certain parts and just kind of relegating like the interesting stuff to the background. Like I remember Ace versus Blackbeard. It was like he was really hyping it up. And it was like going to be a big fight, and you see Ace turn on his fire, and Blackbeard has his power of darkness. And it cuts away, and the next thing you see out of it is, oh, Ace got captured. I was like, oh, okay. I would have liked to have seen that, but okay. And he kind of does that continuously throughout his series. So I'm hoping in the Netflix show they keep it to the interesting parts, because it's only eight episodes, and God knows if they ever manage to get to Water 7, that's going to be like 4 seasons of content minimum.
Also, this reminded me that my wife on Twitter made a Cloud9 for the bingo card, right? And the Cloud9 org saw it, which was nice because they retweeted it for the Pro League team or whatever. But the other thing that happened is that she said, oh, maybe I should make a Church of MHA bingo. And one of the things that she said she would put on the bingo card was an at least 3-minute discussion on One Piece.
Mhm.
And I'm like, yep,
Oh, God.
that's me involved. Like clockwork.
Yeah, no, I think like the One Piece live action looks like it'll end on Arlong Park, which I mean, honestly, I was watching the latest trailer and my nostalgia was going off because it's like, oh wait, I really liked the
That's
I
a good
forget what
part
it
to
was
end.
called, but there's the when they first meet Usopp and that villain there is so cool, but I
Oh,
forgot his
Captain
name.
Hero,
Kuro with his glasses
Yes,
thing.
no, the claws and everything. The
you actually see his
yes,
claws.
I saw
So
that and I like got sent so much nostalgia because I really, really liked that when I was younger. When I was
yeah,
first watching it, I'm like, oh,
I guarantee you this. We're literally going to end on like chapter 100 of the manga when they leave. What's it called?
Lovetown.
Pardon?
I think that's when they leave Lovetown because it's like right when they're
Low,
gonna go up Reverse
Low
Mountains.
Town, yeah. Because like the season is going to start with Roger's execution. So it makes the most sense to end the season 1 on Luffy in like the same spot and escaping, right? Because like he almost ends up executed too, but he gets away. So I think that would be a really fun way to end the first season. And I got to be honest, doesn't look that bad.
There's
I
certain
might
stuff that I'm hoping they kind of include. Like I saw somebody here try to criticize how Arlong looked, and I'm like, bro, what in what world was the fish man gonna translate very well into like live action? Chill out. But
I like Inaki. I hope I'm saying his name right as Luffy. Like
yeah,
everything I've seen so far, like he's the one who's really selling me. Is like when you
yeah,
cast Luffy, you need somebody with that charisma because like the cartoonishness is not gonna be as evident. Like in Luffy's charismatic, but in in the manga he's aided by like kind of being extra and super expressive. In the show, he's not going to have that. So like you're going to have to rely on his acting ability and his magnetism on screen. And I think Inaki has a lot of that.
oh no, I agree. I think he's honestly like perfectly cast.
Mhm.
Um, just like in general, the cartoonish nature is gonna have to be toned down because it's a live action. But so far, I'm like satisfied with the stuff that I have seen. The Zoro and Sanji bickering that we got a bit of was nice. Especially because of the way they cut it in the trailer, like with the I saved you, no, I saved you. But so I'm actually looking forward to it. I'll probably like maybe we'll like I'll watch it and then depending on if my hero's on break or if we can get a schedule together or something, we can maybe sit down and talk about it just to give it its own time of day. Just to, because I think that'll be fun.
Yeah, maybe. Lord knows we're here for like another year at least.
So I mean,
I didn't get that. Could you try again?
Sorry, Siri. That wasn't aimed at you.
so yeah.
the AI are listening.
I will segue back just because somebody did ask a question in the chat regarding if Toga miraculously does survive, would you like for her victims to confront her?
Uh, I mean, if there's time for it, sure. But like, most of her victims are dead.
Yeah, I
So
think
it's
they mean
like
the family of the victims. They might have said
family of the victims. Okay,
Yep,
but
families.
honestly, Toga has been treated so terribly. Like, look, she's done terrible things, but she's been treated so terribly that I don't know. That would feel a little too cruel. I just feel a little too cruel.
Depends on your perspective, honestly. Yeah.
Yeah, but also, like, look, that does she deserve that blowback? Does she deserve to atone for her crimes? Like, actually, and living instead of going out and dying here. Yes, but like she's also a bunch of drawings, so I can feel more attached to her. So it's
My
like she's
stance
a
on it
serial.
is also there's not really a way for her to atone, right? Like you killed a bunch of people.
No.
Like, how do you make that up? You let them chop you to pieces and each like taxiderm is a piece of you
Yeah.
and to their house. Like,
Somebody said to me like, ah man, I wish she could have been spared like Gento. I'm like, well, She did a lot worse than Gentle, because remember, Gentle, the worst he did was honestly when he accidentally caused that guy to land in the hospital. That was absolutely the worst thing he did, and that was an accident. All
And
of
that
his
was
other
before he was
crimes,
gentle.
yeah, all of his other crimes was petty stuff where he would steal from convenience stores. And he didn't even end up stealing the money. He just wanted to do some videos and he'd leave the money behind because he didn't actually want to harm anybody.
I
That's
think
the
the
thing.
big thing was the UA break-in because that was a really sensitive situation.
Yeah,
Like
that's
those
technically
were
his
those were
biggest crime.
kids and stuff that had been repeatedly targeted by villains. So I think he was getting punishment for. Well, I mean, he had to serve time for I guess all of his crimes, whatever they were. But yeah,
He
no, Gentle
definitely
still got the book thrown at him.
he definitely got a harsher sentence for like the sake of sending a message to the public and stuff.
Oh yeah, like just think about that specifically, like trying to sneak into a school full of minors. That's that's serious. That's serious. It's the same thing with like helicopter parents who like kind of hang out. Well, okay, not the same thing, but it's similar to how helicopter parents who kind of hang out around the school to watch for their kids, and that does happen. Like, don't do that. That's very weird. Um, and so actually trying to actively break in, especially with the most lauded, renowned hero school in the country, that's pretty serious. And also, let's look at Nagant, or whatever, however you say her name. Nagant, she was her kills were mostly ordered, and when she killed the guy who was in charge of the Health and Safety Commission, he very clearly deserved it. So like her her killing spree was very like I don't think she was also a victim of circumstance. Like she didn't really do that stuff willingly, is the difference. Toga 100% willingly has killed people because she couldn't express herself. And it's a simultaneous tragedy of like, yes, she can't she was not given actual effective court counseling. She was just told to stamp out what she was feeling. But at the same time, she still chose to take those impulses too far, instead of trying to find a balance. I'd say I'd say that's the real kicker here.
Also, like somebody, I think they said in the chat, like BMAC and Tunisia are talking about, Toga's thing is that she's never caught. So her living and going to prison just kind of like let her maintain the thing that made her, an elite villain, like the fact that she doesn't get caught. And I think letting her have, and I think this also does something important that hasn't really been discussed as much as we talk about like the inhumane treatment of people in Tartarus or whatever. But Toga dying here lets her die with the most dignity that she could possibly have narratively in the entire series. Or like, because the entire time, to a certain degree, yes, she made the conscious choice to live for her quirk, but she's also kind of let her quirk dictate how she's lived her life. So I think dying here is, and maybe it's arguable, but I think it's pretty objectively clear that this is the most free she actually has been in the entire series. Where she was able to love someone, she was able to feel loved by someone. She got to make it her own choice, and instead of taking blood like she had always been doing, she got to give it. She didn't have to go to prison and be locked away. She didn't have to be rejected by the world. She got to go and peacefully and on her own terms while also doing something she actually wanted to do. It's not like she was hiding away in a hole and was like,
Yeah.
well, this is it for me. I'm
And
just
it's
gonna
not-
die in this hole. It was
She's always been afraid of dying, like, and that was kind of her thing. Like she was scared that she was going to die, and like not really liberated. But I think her fear, even greater than that, was the fear of the repercussions, because that would just end her freedom for good, and she knew it was coming eventually. So to have this moment where she can die on her own terms, at her happiest,
Yeah.
yeah,
Like,
and it's not like she's really what I would call suicidal at all. Like that wasn't her thing going into this. She's been I mean, her entire motivation is to make a world where it's easier for her. So I don't think she would be fighting this hard if she was, remotely suicidal. But but with the options presented before her, I think this was just a really natural thing for her to come to the conclusion to. Like, I know people like characters are allowed to be flawed. Like they're allowed to pursue things to an extreme degree that you wouldn't necessarily. Like I don't think every character on screen is supposed to be some kind of role model. So I think like people think Horikoshi is indulging in something like or endorsing something.
that he's just not.
What's it like? Like Horikoshi himself isn't necessarily endorsing Toga's actions. He's just writing them, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, yeah. Like,
Yeah.
it's
So
kind of like that is a weird thing that I think has increased more lately in how people like consume media, where they kind of assume that the acknowledgement of is the endorsement of, and it's a lot more complicated than that, because to a certain degree you cannot write about complex topics if that's what that means. So it's like a weird, and it's interesting because of people normally will consider themselves non or like against Puritanism, but that is an extremely puritanical take to like look at
I
it as
mean,
like, if you write about something, you're acknowledging it. I remember when I was 14 years old, I was reading the seventh Harry Potter book on the steps outside, and one of my mom's like friends or a cousin of ours or somebody, I don't know, came over and she was like, "Oh, you let him read that Harry Potter? It's got all that magic and stuff like that." And I was like, "Well, I mean, it's only bad for you if you're stupid."
yeah,
And like
no,
what I
like
meant by that was like, yeah, he can't read a book without being like, "Well, this is all real. Let me go start practicing witchcraft." Like, and yeah, it's bad for you, but otherwise, like, you
yeah,
should be able to just read a book and go about your day.
yeah. I mean, people understand, I guess, to a point that yeah, there are crazy people and fanatics surrounding anything. It's one of those annoying things where it's like, okay, yeah, you're free to read what you want, even if what you read is like quote unquote objectionable. But it's like, come on, like we need to be able to discuss ideas and
Yeah,
such. Like, how are we supposed to understand each other at any point if we don't just read things? I mean, Harry Potter's not even that kind of thing. It's just a children's book.
right. And that's why, like,
Um,
I just use it as an example because, like, what you're saying is kind of like what that person is doing, or what you're mentioning people doing, or accusing Horikoshi of is like in the same vein. It's like you acknowledge or consume, therefore you are, endorsing or endorsing, and it's like, no, that's no.
well,
But
yeah, like no, it's just for point of discussion. Like, but what I really enjoy about the Toga moment is more like it really is impactful. Like, okay, yeah, Toga could go off to prison or whatever, but and you can write it so that that works, and really you can. But like going out like this is so impactful. It's like I hate anti-drama takes when we're reading a drama. It's similar to how people complain about Twice Dying, when Twice Dying is literally the best thing that could have happened both for his character and Toga's. Like that, so much is built on that conflict. Like the story is so much better this way. It's what I don't like about character standing, where you bend the world around a character and everything should make it just fine, perfect for this character, and it's like, no, just no, I hate that so much. Just let the story be what it's trying to be about, and come what may to the characters. Like there are plenty of characters that I like in the story that I don't think should die, but they can die if the torch is passed forward, right? Because
yeah,
that's what
it's
MHA
supposed
is
to be about
about.
the execution, not just
It's
I want this character to live.
yeah, like Toga and Twice got so much more development than literally so many other heroes or in the series. Like this, like, gosh, I wouldn't want to undo anything that they got through this. I just wouldn't. The series is absolutely better when you have these kinds of dramatic moments that punctuate what the character is about. Toga is a flawed person, but she also has her own ideals, and Horikoshi respects their ideals, even though I don't think he's like endorsing them or agreeing with them. He's like, no, this is who the character is.
Yeah.
And so that's why I can really appreciate something like this. If someone is doing something that is like directly motivated from a place that is tied to the themes of the series, which Toga is doing, then I'm like, okay, fine. I have no place to speak here. She is referencing the Stain arc, where the key takeaway was doing something you're not asked for. That's the essence of being a hero. And that gets more and more profound the more layers Horikoshi builds on it. And Toga being able to do that despite her being generally one of the more selfish characters, but like Toga being able to do that just, and it can, and all considering she was initially inspired by Stain's actions, she's doing things that are an offshoot of Deku's actions, and I just love that so much. Like this, like she actually got brought onto the hero. Like I know when Volk is saying like, no, she's not a hero, like not in the actual like complete sense of the word, but like she was thrown onto that track. Like she is able to do something heroic, and despite her background, which goes so close to MHA's themes. Like,
Well, and
yes.
I also want to say, do you remember what All Might said during Deku's entrance exams?
Refresh my memory.
There's nothing more noble than self-sacrifice.
Oh yes, no, and I hate that people hate that theme. I hate that people hate it. Like you don't like. I understand life is precious, and you shouldn't throw away your life, right? Like you should treat your life with respect. Absolutely. And Horikoshi, I think, has made that point clear with the Dark Deku arc. Like Deku and All Might were sacrificing themselves to the point of not respecting their own life. And that is wrong. But like the actual, like in full context, especially with someone like Toga, who loves herself. She does. She loves herself. She wants to live her best life. She knows her life has value, but she's laying it down anyway because she couldn't bear the thought of a world without Ochaco. And that's why this is a beautiful moment to me. It's a beautiful moment to her arc. And I just was really satisfied with it, even if it's not something I was like asking for. It's like I'm happy we got it.
Yeah, like this isn't like I wasn't sitting there like, yeah, Toga. Like, cause and I think I even said this on stream a couple times, and I know back when East was coming on and stuff like that, we had talked about how Toga escaping would be like this kind of really cool finish where, you know, either Toga or Spinner or somebody getting away. Like one of the things that used to kind of be floated around, that like the idea of Compressed being the only one who didn't end up in prison or dead or whatever would be like the conclusion. You kind of have like him doing like a retrospect, because I think the fact that we've gotten the Spinner flag, because I've said this before, is that I think My Hero Academia, the manga, will eventually, like towards the end, like we'll get the Ochaco and Deku date, but I also think that it's supposed to be Deku's a look back special, and I think it's supposed to be kind of like a mini documentary about the stuff that happened during this time frame, almost like a League of Villains tragedy special documentary or whatever, right? And I think that to a certain degree, people who narrate in the story are typically safer. But like we got like a couple, like I think we got like a twice narration chapter, which made it like a little weird, but like Spinner narrated, and he's like the only, so it's like Bakugo, Deku's twice, and Spinner, I think, are the only characters that straight up narrated chapters. And now only one of those has died. So I think it's kind of curious that we have certain characters. So like I don't expect people who narrate to die necessarily, which is why it threw me through when Twice did die. But at the same time, it like worked, and it's one of the best, that supplanted by, in my opinion, Toga's death now. But I just kind of want to see like what we get regarding the rest of the series and who's alive and who's going to be speaking at the end, and hopefully Spinner gets to lose that extra quirk, because I'm kind of curious where Spinner is, even because I thought he got pulled in through the portal too, but I don't know for sure, so I'm gonna have to go back and look at that later maybe. But we know that Present Mike got pulled, so it's like, from what we know of right now, Spinner is just in the basement of a hospital.
He's either
Or-
there or he's unconscious at the UA battlefield, which I actually think would be neat if, yeah, he did get to be able to see Shigaraki's character arc resolution. I don't know if they would be his final moments, but they really might, given this chapter. So, gosh, this chapter really is wild. Like it the expectations now for the villains, like I was on Everyone Lives train, and Horikoshi's like, yeah, no, the villains aren't gonna let you have your ideal ending, and they really mean it. Like, gosh. Yeah, that's the other thing. I feel like as alive as the themes are in the series, I feel like the characters are directly engaging with and either supporting those themes or fighting against those themes. Like it really, MHA really does feel like it's alive sometimes with the way that the characters are interacting with the plot itself. Like,
So yeah, like the characters and their journeys, we really are reaching the end. So I guess I want to ask, what do you see coming for the rest of the league, right? Do you see Compressed just kind of staying in prison? Do you see some funny business getting him out? What are we expecting for the rest of Spinner? Because I feel like Spinner's arc would have ended in a weird spot. And I kind of want to see Spinner at the very least escape. Because I could see Shigaraki kind of taking the extra perks Awful One gave him back, and like sending him off so he could go live a quiet life himself. Possibly even making him go live quirkless so that he'd be able to take on a new identity or something like that.
Oh yeah, I do wonder if he can take heteromorphy itself. That would be creepy. Gosh. The remaining villains, let's see. Well, Dobby literally could just die in a hospital bed, but for Spinner, honestly, I really don't know. It actually kind of depends on Shigaraki for me. Like that's a tough one to really predict. Compress, nah, I don't think Horikoshi is going to add any more pieces to the board. Like we still have Gashly and that other guy Kunieda or something. I don't remember his name, but there are still two villains in play that we have not even seen fight, and I don't know. Like part of me wonders if Horikoshi is even going to show us those fights. That maybe the anime will do it, but I don't think he's going to add any more pieces to this board. I do think there has to be some kind of idyllic path for someone there. I think I would like it to be Spinner, just a path where someone is able to, re-enter society in a positive way. I think I'm actually becoming more and more convinced of my crack theory about how Shigaraki ends up as a vestige inside Deku somehow. Like I think that similar to Toga, how her convictions you can't just snuff out by being kind to her. I don't think you can with Shigaraki either. But I think Deku can pull Shigaraki out of All for One and whatever that thing is that they made, that really monstrous body of his. I think that maybe that will be how they're able to resolve that conflict, and that would mean Shigaraki would be living inside Deku in this weird state. I'm not sure how that exactly would go, but yeah, I think like the villains are going to they lose, but it's not going to be that simple, I guess. Horikoshi really went hard on the gray ending here, so I'm not sure really. And people call MHA predictable, and then MHA just does stuff like this where it's like, well, I don't know what's going on anymore.
Which is what I like about it. You can nail down some of its plot points or ideas, but ultimately its execution will usually throw someone to it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Girl. All right, let's see. Since we got a shorter start it's today, I think we should be able to wrap up about here.
Yeah.
Unless there's any other questions, anything topics anybody wants to bring up real quick. All right. Speak now or forever hold your peace until next Sunday. All right, let's go. You got any final thoughts, Seth?
Just an amazing chapter. You guys actually covered a lot, I thought, early on, pretty good from what I was listening in onto. Wait, can you guys actually hear me okay? I got an actually new microphone and it's
No, you've been great today.
oh great, that's good. I was yeah, I got a new mic, so I actually am doing this from my PC now, so okay, cool. No problems there. All right. No, this was for me, I think what I don't know if we talked about enough, but it's okay. Like the symbolism in this chapter feels really both subtle but like powerful. Just the meaning of blood, what that means to Toga. Like it really is like blood is literally life, and for her it's also love.
Yeah, it's
And
like her, it's her everything.
It's everything, and it's sacrifice, and it's just there's so much meaning in the word blood, and I just really like how this transfusion going on, how symbolic and powerful and meaningful it is. It even is reminiscent of the red string of fate somewhat, like just the way it's depicted as Toga says her thank yous to Uraraka, just the way that the two strings are intertwined like that. So like the symbolism is beautiful. The fact that Toga has one of her hair undone, or one of her pigtail things, one of those are undone. That's a spider lily, but it becomes flourished. She also looks amazing. Horikoshi just draws art. The way Horikoshi draws his characters, like you can tell he doesn't just do stock positions or whatever. He's like, okay, no, they have to look like this. Like he takes perspective into account and everything, and just I love his art so much. And yeah, like one of the spider lilies is undone in her hair, but the other is still in place. So she's like, it's that gray area again of where her character is right now. And yeah, I love it. She's also in the same position as when she was hugging twice in this weird half hug kind of thing at the end. And then yeah, the All Might thing that she is holding on to. Just I love this chapter, and I loved MHA in general. There's just so much here to appreciate with the symbolism and just the art and the plot. I think it was beautiful.
It's almost like a take my blood, carry on your blood, and go give that shit to Becky. Since we did get that confession finally. And then Volk, you still here? Let's see, is Volk still here?
He's on mute, maybe getting coffee or something. I don't know. I tend to talk too long.
No, you're fine. All right. But I assume that Volk maybe is trapped in the back. Oh, wait, let's see what the chat says.
Oh, the chat says he would be back in 20. So I don't know if.
Oh, that means he will be back in about 2 minutes.
Or one, yeah. What about you, Aniki? What about your final thoughts regarding the chapter?
Yeah, so I'm gonna say that, like I said, when I first finished this chapter, this might actually be my #1 chapter in the series.
Wow.
Yeah. Conclusions tend to rate higher than setup chapters, though. That's just the way it works.
Sticking the landing really is important.
I think it's probably no, I think it is the best conclusion to a character's arc we've gotten with Toga. Just the like I was saying, like Toga kind of has entrusted everything to Ochaco here. By choosing to die, and specifically saying it's like the future without her that she doesn't like. I believe that she's looked at Ochaco as the person, and she currently holds Ochaco in a higher regard than she's held anybody else.
Yeah.
And I think she sees Ochaco as the one who can bring forward that bright future. So, obviously she doesn't say, like blah, 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 like bright future. Ochaco is the light of her life at this point. And
Yeah.
I think that's part of why, like, what you see for the final shot is like her staring into like blue skies, arms outstretched and happy. And the sun is just like beaming down on her in this moment. Instead of us like focusing on her origin or anything like that, it's just a way for us to dial back, focus on what could have been, while also kind of giving Ochaco that like understanding that saving people doesn't always mean they get to live, which is a hard lesson to deal with. But I also think it kind of ties back into what like Gran Torino said, which is like sometimes killing is a form of saving, because not only do I not think Toga would have been happy with herself in prison, I don't think Ochaco would have been happy with Toga in prison. And so there's an extra layer of like what Ochaco fighting for Toga to not be in prison like that, or constantly visiting Toga, have damaged her career as a hero. So there's a lot of like little facets here that when you look at the battle to change society and the way it all unfolds down the road, that this is like the perfect conclusion for Toga, the perfect timing. And it's only more tragic that a more positive path for her isn't available. And I'm very curious about where Hawk's character will be at the end of this series, just with the way that he's kind of just like seemed to have just consigned himself to dying after seeing all those twices and seeing Toga's face in them and the tears that she was shedding. And
Yeah.
the realization that as much as Toga thought love was what she was fighting for, that a lot of what she was doing wasn't love, which means to a certain degree she's dying with a sense of what love is really about, what she really wanted in life, and understanding that it's like too late for her, even though it's just an all-around tragic situation, and that I can appreciate a real tragedy here. And I'm just glad that, I'm glad Ochaco's not gonna die. I'm just sad at what it costs to get us there. And that's, I think, what we should be feeling with this chapter. And I'm just hoping that she can get some medical attention so that Toga's sacrifice doesn't go in vain. And from here, I'm just like, and I like that this chapter doesn't even like hint at where we're going with the next one. Like, just truly dialed in. Yeah, we got to see some stuff from around the horn, but really focused on Toga and Ochaco. And I'm hoping that for how powerful this chapter is, whatever cover we get for this volume, it has to be Ochaco and Toga.
I think so
Yeah,
too.
the Shoto and Dapi stuff was powerful, but it's not touching this. It doesn't touch this in my opinion. It's just not like the Shoto, the Todoroki family stuff was like good old A-class writing, but this is that S+ tier that like, oh snap, you unlock a hidden boss with this performance in this round type writing. And yeah, so I'm gonna real quick see if Volk, if you're still here. Looks like Volk has not made it back in 20, so I'm just gonna go ahead and close the stream here. Appreciate everybody who came through in the chat. Appreciate Horikoshi for writing this fucking banger of a chapter. Hope to see you guys all next week. And I know that we do have a jump break coming up. I see somebody mention that in the chat, but yeah. Really looking forward to it. Thanks to everybody who came through. That's going to be the end of the stream. We thank you all. Appreciate you guys every week.